On that point, Umar bin Abdul Aziz is caliph for no more than 2 years, a very short period of time after which he's poisoned. Do you think there's any strength to the argument that he's poisoned because he's getting ready to perhaps offer, in the same way that Muawiyah ibn Yazid was ready to abdicate and say, no, this has to go back to the rights of the Ahlulbayt? Do you think there's an argument to be had that perhaps Umar bin Abdul Aziz had recognised that the caliphate wasn't his and he was ready to hand it back, or at least make a point in that direction?
No, well, there could be an argument posited that Umar bin Abdul Aziz had a definite leaning towards the Alids and the idea that he was always ensured that their properties are looked after, that they are protected. There is a famous incident where he protects a person who believed Ali ibn Abi Talib is the greatest creation after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. But I think the fact that he was being lenient to the Alids was enough. Not that he's going towards abdicating his throne. The fact that he was lenient, because some people question his decisions to appoint certain governors and say, well, if he was really a supporter of Ahlulbayt, what's he doing appointing this guy as his governor? It's not so much that he was coming towards the Imami school, but I think it was more because he was being lenient towards the Alids.
Okay, thank you. And in fact, so we've discussed fadak and the caliphs who, or the nature of the caliphs who Imam Baqir alayhi salam is living under. And you mentioned that these are Umayyad caliphs and that they are perhaps, definitely the oppressors of the school of Ahlulbayt. But are there any challenges or revolutions taking place during the time of Imam Baqir alayhi salam against the ruling Umayyad elites?
Yes, definitely. As arguably the most famous revolution to take place in the time of Imam Baqir alayhi salam was by his brother Zaid. Zaid, the brother of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, stood up against Hisham bin Abdul Malik. Hisham bin Abdul Malik used to have sessions where he would invite Christian poets and ask them to write poetry cursing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and ask them also to write poetry cursing the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Zaid, the brother of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, was a witness to this. And Zaid was revered as a man of piety. They used to say he's the partner and the equal of the Quran, and he has memorized many verses of the Quran. And Ahlulbayt used to speak about him, that one narration states when Zaid was born, when Imam Zain al-Abidin opened the Quran, he read the verse, do not count those who have died in the way of God as being dead, rather they are alive. So Zaid had this reputation of being a man of piety. And when Zaid saw Hisham bin Abdul Malik, Zaid spoke to him and he said, it's wrong of you to have poets who are cursing the prophet of this religion. He said, who are you to tell me? You're the son of a slave girl. So Zayd looked at him and he said, well, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, his son Ismail was also the son of a slave girl, but Allah honored him. He said to him, I'll curse the prophet and I'll curse Fatima as well. Zayd at that moment said, I am leaving this place and I'm going to raise an army against this man. Some say he went against Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, but Sayyid al-Khu'i within his Rijal has studied all of those narrations of those who claim that Zayd went against Imam al-Baqir, and he clearly proves that these people were enemies of Zayd. But they started concocting narrations about Zayd to say that he went against Imam al-Baqir. Zayd went to see Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Baqir said to him, and it's very similar with Imam Zain al-Abidin and Mukhtar, one may argue, that they both go and see the Imam of their time.
Which is a recognition of the status.
Yes, without a doubt. Mukhtar goes to see Imam Zain al-Abidin, and Imam al-Baqir, Zayd, goes to see him, and he sits with him, and the only thing Imam al-Baqir says to him is, he says, Zayd, I'm just fear that they'll do to you what they did to our grandfather at Karbala. The Kufans will promise that they'll turn up, but I don't think they'll turn up. If they turn up, you'll win. Because he expected thousands to turn up, and he found 500 that turned up. And he looked at it, looked at the whole situation, and he said, لَعَلَّهُمْ فَعَلُوهَا حُسَيْنِيَّةً, that they've done a Husayni on me, like they've unfortunately promised that they joined, but they seem to have backed out. But he fought. The head of the opposition was Yusuf al-Thaqafi, the father of Hajjaj. And they were revolutionaries. They really held it up in that battle. But unfortunately, he got an arrow which went straight through his forehead, where if you took it out, you'll die, and if it stays in there, you'll die. And for him, the fact that they had cursed Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, it was for him an honor to die as a martyr. And they tried to hang his body naked, and there would be a bird which would have a nest to cover any of, the areas of privacy, until they decided to burn his body. And so if people ask who's the revolutionary in the time of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, Zaid, his brother, was a great revolutionary, no doubt. And until today we have in the Muslim world, a school known as the Zaydi school. And this school honors Zaid and honor Imam Zayn al-Abidin and so on.
And regarding, I think it's kind of ironic that you mentioned that Zaid rises up because of an insult by Hashim ibn Abdul Malik. But his father supposedly has, as you mentioned previously, gone to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam for advice regarding a Christian attempt to insult Rasulullah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that his father would, on the surface of it, be seeming to try to defend Rasulullah, although what's in his heart leaves a lot to be desired. And yet his own sons and his own children, supposedly Muslims, are doing the same thing.
I think this points to hilm, what one may translate as political finesse, being a real attribute of the Umayyads. That from Muawiyah until Hisham bin Abdul Malik, if there is an attribute that they should be revered with, it's not ilm, it's not shaja'ah, for example, but rather an attribute like hilm is one they should be revered with, because they really have political finesse, and in many cases political finesse without a conscience which is alive and the presence of God in your life can be very dangerous.
Absolutely. And so obviously we move forward, and Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam as obviously the father of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and as we mentioned before, he is known as al-Baqir, who is the splitter of knowledge, or of the ocean of knowledge. And I think sometimes perhaps people obviously rightfully credit Imam al-Sadiq. Obviously we have the Ja'fari school of thought, so we are known as the followers of the school of Imam Ja'far alayhi salam. But maybe there isn't as much of a recognition by us as well as Shias and followers of the school of Ahlulbayt of the contribution of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam to Imam al-Sadiq, and how Imam al-Sadiq has reached this level. So what was their relationship like, and how, especially in terms of the knowledge which is disseminated from father to son?
Definitely, as in from a young age, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is taking Imam al-Sadiq under his wings. He's not just teaching him the areas of jurisprudence or theology, he's even opening him up to the sciences of astronomy, to the sciences of philosophy, to the science of geography. Different sciences he explores with him. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam has a lovely quote where he says, when talking about his father, that he also had a spiritual influence on him. That he says, one day my father saw me praying, and he said to me, my son, you don't have to pray that much. A little prayer, but with love for Allah is enough. So that, he goes, had a major effect on my life, that my father spoke to me with these beautiful words, that Imam al-Sadiq used to pray so much. But Imam al-Baqir says, you don't have to do that much. Do a little, but with love. There are many who pray all their prayers, but with no love of Allah, with no yearning towards Allah, whereas he says that this really was a quote which affected my life, as an example. And there's one thing to understand. Whenever you hear the name Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, you always hear the number 4,000. Whenever you hear the name Muhammad al-Baqir, you should always remember the number 25,000. Because 25,000 graduated from the Medina of Muhammad al-Baqir, and 4,000 graduated from Ja'far al-Sadiq. Yet within our mosques today, many times more is given attention to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, because you could possibly say that there's a more concrete crystallization of the madhab in that period and the discussions of the time. But Imam al-Baqir began an institution where 25,000 people had graduated from it, and therefore he is known as Baqir al-Ulum, because he's the one who split every area of knowledge that these graduates would all come back to him.
And obviously you mentioned that he's established, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam has established Medina University. How exactly has he done it? Is it he's established a building, or is it something, is it already a pre-existing educational structure but he's reformed it, or how exactly does Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam enact this educational revolution, so to speak?
Remember that that Masjid al-Nabawi, that Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina was always the center of education from the beginning, from the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know that story, when he enters the mosque, sees a group of people gaining knowledge and a group of people praying and so on. So it was always the center of knowledge, and it continues to be the center of knowledge with Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. You know, you didn't need to build a Sorbonne or an Oxford or a Harvard. You rather built within Masjid al-Nabawi classes, you know, people who come and sit down in your classes and they gain their knowledge from you. As I said, revered people like Abu Hanifa would comment many occasions on sitting in those classes.
Absolutely. And so...
I started reading the book the very same night that he's given it to me. And in fact, I completed the book the very same night. And when I started to read things in that book, it went exactly against the grain of my thought, is that this is not what I've learned in my madrasa days. And I believed at that point in time is that I knew quite a bit about Islam, and only after reading the book did I realize how little I knew about Islam. And then I started to investigate, and there was a particular hadith, a hadith of fadak that I read, and that started my investigation. And then I wanted to see how true it was that Bibi Fatima Salamun Alayha has faced all these atrocities in life. And at that point in time, when I authenticated this hadith, especially from the school of thought that I've come from, and I found that to be true, then I said, Shukr to my Allah that you have guided me onto the right.
We delved deeper and we started scratching.
The day that I've authenticated hadith of fadak, I was not fearful for any person I came across. I confronted every single ulama that I knew and wanted to know exactly, is this true or not? And when I realized that they couldn't give me answers and they were playing hide and seek, then I realized that there was much to it. And that's what made me even more stronger. So as we gained momentum, my family actually split in two. So they are lovers of Ahlulbayt, and then half of my family started to follow the school of Ahlulbayt ﷺ, and the other half, my blood brothers, were actually against me. So my family basically is split into two, because they regard me, because the ulama tell them that our school of thought is kufr. So they keep away from basically myself. It was very difficult. The first few years were extremely difficult. Remember, it was just a handful of us that had to face the entire community. And when you greeted your fellow brother, Assalamu alaikum, he would not greet you back because he thought you were a kafir. And those things brought tears to our eyes. We had to endure those pain. Up to this very time, when you want to reflect on the past, people treated you like, you were so alone. You were so alone. There was not another Shia brother that was in the vicinity, nor anybody that would lend that support into saying, brother, chill, everything will be okay. We were alone. We just had to endure that pain. Shukr to Afosa, Maulana Aftab Haider, that when we met him at a later stage, he was the one that was our motivating factor. Brother, hang in there, hang in there. These things happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and basically my strength, when I read about Bibi Zainab Salamun alayha, and every time when you take the name of Bibi Zainab Salamun alayha, that is my strength. When Bibi Zainab Salamun alayha stood in the court of Yazid and spoke like a father eloquently and defended Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam, up to this day, this is my motivating factor. And this is the story that I tell my kids. And I say from the bottom of my heart, to stand up anywhere in any part of the world and scream that I am the lover of Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is what I have inculcated in my family, my wife, my children, and whoever I can. And what the challenges that we face today, and what gets me going is that when we find a simple excuse wherever it is in the community, the moment there is an excuse to talk about the love for the Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam, we will stop anything we're doing just to tell people, look at what is out there. Look at what is out there. What is you are missing? And this is what keeps us so energized day in and day out.
Absolutely wonderful moment. And I mean, what happened all those years ago, you remember it, but you don't even worry about it anymore. And those friends that rejected you, you don't even think about them because you got a much better family. A family that means so much more to you in every respect, every socially, spiritually, in every way. And I just feel that we can just grow and grow and grow from here. And I can't wait for our mosque in Cape Town. Allahumma salli alayhi, Allahumma salli alayhi.